The Forgotten. The air in the holding cells of Kethren 7 tasted like rust and despair. Lyra pressed her back against the cold metal wall, her knees drawn to her chest, and tried to remember what freedom felt like. 3 years. 3 years since the Vareth warships had descended on her colony world like locusts, snatching everyone they could find. 3 years since she had seen the twin suns of her homeworld or felt the warm wind across her face. Around her, prisoners from a dozen different species huddled in the dim light. Some whispered prayers to gods who had seemingly abandoned them. Others sat in silence, their eyes empty. The Vareth Empire had perfected the art of breaking spirits long before they broke bodies. The facility itself was a monument to cruelty. Built into the side of a mountain on Kethren 7, it housed over 12,000 slaves at any given time. Processing center, the Varath called it. A place where captives were sorted, cataloged, and shipped across the Empire to labor camps, mines, or worse. The guards were brutal. The work was endless. And hope was a luxury no one could afford. Lyra traced her fingers along the scars on her arms, marks from plasma burns, from equipment failures, from punishments for working too slowly. She had been an engineer once, designing propulsion systems for civilian transports. Now she repaired the same machines that kept her imprisoned. A metallic clang echoed through the corridor, followed by the heavy footsteps of Vareth guards. Lyra didn't bother looking up. It was feeding time, which meant a thin gruel that barely sustained life and a fresh round of insults from their captors. "Move, vermin," one guard snarled, slamming his shock baton against the bars. "Eat quickly. Transport preparation begins tomorrow." The word sent a ripple of fear through the prisoners. Transport meant one of two things. Either you were being sent to a labor camp where the life expectancy was measured in months, or you were going to the Varath capital for public execution. Either way, few ever returned. As the guards moved on, a voice drifted from the adjacent cell, one Lyra had come to recognize over the past few weeks. "They're getting nervous," the voice said. It was male, speaking in the galactic common tongue with an accent Lyra didn't recognize. "Did you hear how quickly they're moving us? Something has them spooked." Lyra shifted closer to the wall that separated them. "Who are you?" she asked quietly. She had asked before, but the voice had always deflected. There was a pause. Then, "My name is Marcus. I'm human. Human." Lyra had heard whispers about them, a newly encountered species from a remote region of the galaxy. The rumors varied wildly. Some said humans were primitive, barely capable of space travel. Others claimed they were aggressive and unpredictable. The Vareth had raided several human colonies 3 months ago, taking prisoners just as they had taken Lyra's people. "I've heard of your species," Lyra said. "The guards mock you. They say you're weak, that your people won't even try to rescue you." Marcus laughed, a bitter sound. "They think we're weak because we value life. Because we negotiate before we fight. They mistake mercy for weakness." "Then why hasn't anyone come for you?" Lyra asked. She didn't mean it cruelly, but the words came out harsher than intended. "It's been months, hasn't it? If your people cared, wouldn't they have—" "They're coming," Marcus interrupted, his voice suddenly firm. "I don't know when, but they're coming. Humans don't abandon their own. It's not in our nature." Lyra wanted to believe him. She truly did, but she had seen too many species broken by the Vareth. She had watched prisoners cling to hope until it destroyed them from the inside. "Hope is dangerous here," she whispered. "Maybe," Marcus replied, "but it's all we have." The next morning, the facility erupted into activity. Varath soldiers marched through every corridor, conducting counts and organizing prisoner manifests. The loudspeakers crackled with orders in the harsh, clicking language of the Empire. Lyra and 50 others from her block were herded into a staging area, a massive hangar bay where transport ships waited like hungry beasts. She caught a glimpse of Marcus for the first time as they were led past another group. He was tall for a human, with dark skin and close-cropped hair. His uniform was tattered and fresh bruises covered his face, but his eyes burned with something Lyra couldn't quite name. Defiance, perhaps, or certainty. Their eyes met for just a moment before the guards shoved his group in a different direction. A Vareth officer stood on a raised platform, addressing the assembled prisoners in common tongue. "You are being transported to the capital world," he announced. "There you will serve as examples to the galaxy. The Vareth Empire does not tolerate resistance. Your deaths will be broadcast to every corner of known space. Public execution." The worst fate possible. Around Lyra, prisoners began to weep. Some collapsed. Others screamed in languages she didn't understand. The guards responded with shock batons and threats, forcing everyone into formation. Lyra felt numb. 3 years of survival, and this was how it ended. She would die on an alien world, for the entertainment of monsters, while her family, if they were even still alive, would never know what happened to her. The officer continued speaking, but Lyra barely heard him. Her mind drifted to memories of home, her younger brother, chasing her through fields of silver grass, her mother teaching her the principles of engineering, her father laughing at jokes only he understood. A sudden blare of alarms shattered her thoughts. Red emergency lights flooded the hangar bay. The Vareth officer stopped mid-sentence, his hand moving to a communication device on his belt. Guards snapped to attention, their weapons raised, their heads turning toward the ceiling as if expecting something to crash through. "What's happening?" someone whispered. The officer listened to his device, his expression shifting from confusion to anger, to something Lyra had never seen on a Vareth face before. Fear. "Impossible," he muttered. Then louder, "All units to defensive positions. Seal the upper levels. Move!" Chaos erupted. Guards began shouting orders, running in different directions. Prisoners were forgotten in the panic, left standing in confused clusters as their captors scrambled to respond to whatever threat had appeared. Lyra grabbed the arm of a nearby prisoner, a Kelthani female she had worked beside for months. "What do you think?" Another alarm, louder this time. The facility's defensive guns began firing, the deep booming sound reverberating through the walls. Explosions followed, distant at first, then growing closer. Through the hangar bay's reinforced viewports, Lyra saw streaks of light cutting through the atmosphere. Not meteors, not debris, ships, dozens of them, hundreds. A Vareth soldier ran past, panic in his voice. "They came out of nowhere. The entire defense fleet is..." He never finished. An explosion rocked the facility so violently that Lyra was thrown to the ground. Emergency sirens wailed. Dust and debris rained from the ceiling. When she looked up, the viewport showed a sight that defied belief. Warships. Massive, angular vessels painted in grays and whites bearing symbols she didn't recognize. They moved with precision and purpose, firing weapons that tore through Vareth defense stations like they were made of paper. Smaller craft, fighters perhaps, swarmed around the larger ships, engaging Vareth interceptors in dogfights that lit up the sky. And there were so many of them. Wave after wave, descending from the darkness of space like a storm made manifest. A human voice crackled through the facility's communication system. How they had accessed it, Lyra couldn't imagine. The voice was calm, measured, and utterly cold. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Fleet. You are holding 217 human citizens, along with thousands of other sentient beings. You will release them immediately and surrender your facility. This is your only warning." Silence hung in the air for 3 heartbeats. Then the Vareth officer in the hangar bay screamed into his communicator. "Engage! Engage all weapons! Kill the humans before they..." Another explosion. Closer this time. The viewport shattered and wind howled through the breach. Prisoners scattered, seeking cover. Lyra crawled behind a cargo container, her heart hammering. Through the smoke and chaos, she saw something that made her blood freeze. Vareth guards were executing prisoners, not out of orders, out of spite. If they were going to lose, they would take as many lives with them as possible. She watched in horror as a guard raised his weapon toward a group of Kelthani children, and then the guard's head exploded. Lyra's scream died in her throat as armored figures descended from above, literally dropped from the sky on rocket packs, landing with precision in the middle of the hangar bay. They wore black and gray combat armor, sleek and terrifying, with helmets that covered their faces. Each carried weapons that fired with sharp cracking sounds, weapons that didn't miss. The Varath guards didn't stand a chance. Within seconds, the hangar bay was a war zone. The armored figures moved like ghosts, coordinating without words, eliminating threats with brutal efficiency. Every shot was a kill. Every movement was purposeful. One of them, larger than the others, sprinted directly toward the group of Kelthani children, placing himself between them and the remaining guards. He didn't hesitate. 3 shots. 3 dead guards. Then he turned to the children and his helmet retracted. Marcus. His face was hard, his jaw set, but his eyes softened as he knelt before the terrified children. "You're safe now," he said in common tongue. "I promise. You're safe." Another figure appeared beside Lyra, causing her to flinch. The helmet retracted, revealing a woman with sharp features and kind eyes. "Are you injured?" the woman asked. Lyra couldn't speak. She could only stare. The woman smiled gently. "It's okay. We're here to take you home. All of you." Around the hangar bay, more humans were arriving. They moved through the facility like an unstoppable tide, securing corridors, freeing prisoners, providing medical aid. They didn't just rescue their own people. They rescued everyone. Marcus approached Lyra, recognition flashing across his face. "You're the one from the cell next to mine," he said. She nodded, still unable to find words. "I told you," Marcus said, "and despite everything, the blood, the smoke, the bodies," he smiled. "Humans don't leave anyone behind." Above them, the battle continued to rage. But for the first time in 3 years, Lyra allowed herself to feel something she thought had died. Hope. The storm descends. The facility shook again, harder this time, as another human warship unleashed its weapons on the Verith orbital platforms. Through the shattered viewport, Lyra watched massive explosions blossom in the upper atmosphere like deadly flowers. The Verith defenses, which had seemed so impenetrable for 3 years, were crumbling in minutes. Marcus moved through the hangar with practiced efficiency, coordinating with his team through hand signals and brief radio bursts. Other rescued humans, those strong enough to stand, were being armed and organized. They didn't cower or celebrate. They prepared to fight. "Secure this sector," one of the armored soldiers shouted. "Medical teams, start triage. We have thousands more to extract." Lyra watched as human medics rushed forward, carrying equipment she'd never seen before. They moved from prisoner to prisoner, scanning injuries with handheld devices, administering treatments, speaking softly in reassuring tones. One medic knelt beside an elderly Draknari male who had collapsed, his breathing shallow. "Stay with me, sir," the medic said, working quickly. "I've got you. You're going to be okay." The Draknari's 3 eyes widened in disbelief. Why help me?" "I am not your kind." The medic looked up, confusion crossing her face. "Because you need help." That's reason enough. Lyra felt tears burning her eyes. In 3 years, she had never seen a Verith show mercy to anyone. Yet these humans, these supposedly weak emotional creatures, were risking their lives for complete strangers. An explosion rocked the eastern wall, and a section of the ceiling collapsed. Dust and debris filled the air. Through the chaos, Lyra heard screams from deeper in the facility. Marcus was beside her in an instant. "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded. "Good. Stay close to Lieutenant Morrison." He gestured to the woman who had first spoken to Lyra. "We're pushing deeper. There are more prisoners in the lower levels." "The lower levels?" Lyra's voice cracked. "That's where they keep the condemned. The ones scheduled for immediate execution. The Verith will kill them all before they let you reach them." Marcus's expression hardened. "Then we'd better move fast." The human assault was unlike anything Lyra had ever witnessed. They moved through the facility like a surgical instrument, precise, coordinated, devastating. Doors that should have been impenetrable were breached with explosive charges or bypassed entirely with hacking tools. Verith guards who attempted to make stands were outmaneuvered and overwhelmed within seconds. But the Verith weren't surrendering. They were fighting with the desperation of cornered animals. As Marcus's team descended into the lower levels, resistance intensified. The corridors narrowed, forcing the humans to advance more carefully. Plasma fire scorched the walls. Verith soldiers used the prisoners as shields, dragging them from cells and pressing weapons to their heads. "Fall back or we kill them," a Verith officer screamed, his translator device making his words understandable. He held a young Solari girl, no more than 10 years old, with a blade pressed to her throat. "Fall back now!" The human soldiers froze. Lyra could see the calculation in their eyes, the terrible math of warfare. Save one life and risk the mission, or sacrifice one to save hundreds. Marcus raised his weapon slowly, his voice calm. "Let the child go. You can walk away from this alive. But if you hurt her, I promise you, there won't be a corner of this galaxy where you can hide." The Verith officer laughed, a harsh clicking sound. "You think I fear death? The Empire will hunt your species to extinction for this attack. You are nothing. You are—" The shot came from somewhere behind the Varath officer. His head snapped forward and he crumpled. The girl dropped, and before she could hit the ground, Marcus was there, catching her, pulling her to safety. Lyra turned to see who had fired. It was another prisoner, a grizzled Kelthani male holding a rifle he'd scavenged from a fallen guard. His hands trembled, but his eyes were clear. 3 years, he said quietly. 3 years I waited for someone to fight back. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Marcus nodded, then passed the girl to Lieutenant Morrison. Get her to the medical teams. The rest of you with me. We're not done yet. They found the execution chambers 15 minutes later. The room was vast and circular, with holding pens arranged in rings around a central platform. Hundreds of prisoners were crammed inside. Varath policy was to execute in batches for maximum efficiency. Automated weapons were mounted on the walls, already tracking movement, and in the center of the platform stood Commander Vekthar, the facility's overseer. He was massive even for a Varath, his carapace scarred from decades of warfare. In his clawed hand he held a detonator. One step closer, Vekthar hissed, and I trigger the charges beneath this room. Everyone dies. You humans value life so much? Then choose, retreat, or watch hundreds die because of your arrogance. Marcus didn't hesitate. He stepped forward. You're bluffing, he said. You're a soldier, not a terrorist. You won't kill your own facility, your own people, just to spite us. Vekthar's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. You understand nothing of the Varath. We do not accept defeat. If I cannot keep these slaves, no one will have them. Then you're not a soldier, Marcus said quietly. You're just a coward. Vekthar roared and pressed the detonator. Nothing happened. The Varath commander stared at the device in confusion, pressing it again and again. Behind him, a figure emerged from the shadows, a human in lighter armor carrying a tablet instead of a weapon. The tech specialist gave a small wave. Disarmed your explosives about 3 minutes ago, she said cheerfully. Also locked down your security systems, disabled your communications array, and ordered your coffee maker to brew decaf. You know, just to be thorough. Vekthar's roar of rage was cut short as Marcus's team moved. Within seconds, the Varath commander was on the ground, restrained and being hauled away. The automated weapons were deactivated. The holding pens were opened. Prisoners poured out, stumbling, weeping, unable to believe what was happening. Human soldiers and freed captives worked together to help the injured, to guide the disoriented, to provide water and reassurance. Lyra moved through the crowd, helping where she could, translating for those who didn't speak common tongue. She found herself beside Marcus as he coordinated the evacuation. How many ships do you have? She asked. In orbit right now? About 600, Marcus replied, checking a datapad. Another 300 are in reserve at the system's edge. We also have medical frigates, transport vessels, and supply ships. This is the largest rescue operation in human history. 600 warships, Lyra repeated, stunned. For 200 humans? Marcus looked at her, his expression serious. No, for everyone. The moment we learned this facility held 12,000 prisoners from 40 different species, this stopped being about just rescuing our people. It became about doing what's right. But the cost, the resources, are irrelevant, Marcus interrupted gently. On Earth, we have a principle. It doesn't matter if you're human or not. If you're suffering, if you're enslaved, if you're in danger, you deserve help. You deserve freedom. That's not negotiable. Above them, the battle continued to rage. The Varath Empire had not become a galactic power by accepting defeat. Within hours of the initial human assault, reinforcements arrived. A fleet of 800 warships accompanied by fighters, bombers, and assault carriers. They emerged from faster-than-light travel in a coordinated formation, ready to crush the upstart human fleet. Admiral Thrax, commanding from his flagship Eternal Dominion, watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The humans had perhaps 600 vessels. Good ships, he admitted, and their crews had shown surprising competence. But numbers were numbers. Mathematics was absolute. All ships, he commanded. Attack formation. We will surround them, destroy their vessels, and reclaim our facility. Show these primitives what happens when you challenge the Varath Empire. The Varath fleet advanced, like a hammer descending on an anvil. And then the humans did something unexpected. They spread out. Instead of forming defensive formations or attempting to flee, the human ships dispersed across a massive three-dimensional grid, each vessel taking up a precise position. Thrax frowned. What were they doing? This formation left them vulnerable, unable to concentrate their firepower. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, the humans are launching something. Thousands of small objects. Fighters, perhaps. Destroy them, Thrax ordered. But they weren't fighters. They were drones, autonomous combat units the size of small shuttles, each equipped with directed energy weapons, electronic warfare suites, and kamikaze protocols. They moved with inhuman precision, swarming Vareth ships like insects. The Vareth fleet's advantage vanished in minutes. Their ships collided with each other as their navigation systems were hacked. Their weapons fired at ghost targets created by sophisticated jamming, and when they tried to form defensive positions, the human warships struck from unexpected angles, their railguns and missile batteries tearing through armor with terrifying efficiency. Thrax watched in growing horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. This wasn't warfare. This was mathematics of a different kind. The kind where every variable was calculated, every outcome predicted, every possibility countered before it could manifest. Retreat, he finally screamed. All ships retreat to... His flagship shuddered as something massive struck it. The lights flickered. Alarms screamed. Thrax's tactical display showed the damage. Primary engines destroyed, weapons offline, life support failing. A communication channel opened, and a human face appeared on his screen. A woman older with gray hair and eyes like ice. This is Admiral Chen, she said. Your fleet is defeated. Your facility is liberated. You have two choices, surrender or die. You have 30 seconds to decide. Thrax felt his mandibles tremble. You cannot do this. The Empire will retaliate. We will burn your worlds. We will exterminate your species. You have made a mistake that will cost 20 seconds, Admiral Chen said calmly. You don't understand what you've started. 10 seconds. Thrax looked at his bridge crew. Young soldiers, loyal warriors, all watching him with eyes that held no hope. He had led them to slaughter against an enemy he had fatally underestimated. We surrender, he whispered. Admiral Chen nodded. Wise choice. Stand by for boarding parties. Any vessel that resists will be destroyed. The channel closed. Thrax slumped in his command chair, defeated. Around him, his bridge crew began shutting down weapons and opening airlocks. Through the viewport, he could see human ships moving to secure what remained of his fleet. They had been so certain, so arrogant. They had believed the humans were weak, that mercy was cowardice, that emotional attachment was a flaw to be exploited. They had been catastrophically wrong. 24 hours later, Catherine 7 was firmly under human control. The facility had been completely evacuated. All 12,000 prisoners had been transported to human medical ships, where they received treatment, food, clean clothing, and counseling. Species that had never met humans before found themselves surrounded by doctors, engineers, and volunteers who worked tirelessly to help them. Lyra stood on the observation deck of the UES Valiant, watching as transport ships ferried refugees to safety. Beside her, Marcus leaned against the railing, his armor replaced with a simple uniform. What happens now? Lyra asked. Now? Marcus considered. Now we take everyone home. Every single person on those ships will be returned to their homeworlds or relocated to safe colonies if their homes are gone. No one will be abandoned. And the Varath? Marcus's expression hardened. The Vareth Empire has built itself on slavery and suffering. We've just shown the galaxy that they can be defeated. Other species will find courage. Rebellions will start. And humanity? We're going to make sure every slave camp, every facility like this one is found and liberated. That's an enormous undertaking, Lyra said. It could take years, decades. Yes, Marcus agreed. But it's the right thing to do. And humans have a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We're done doing nothing. Lyra felt tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for not leaving us. For caring about more than just your own people. Marcus smiled. On Earth, we learned something a long time ago through great pain and many mistakes. We're all part of the same universe. If we don't stand together against cruelty, against oppression, against those who would enslave and torture, then what's the point of civilization? What's the point of being sentient if we don't use that gift to protect those who can't protect themselves? A communication alert chimed. Marcus checked his datapad and his expression shifted. What is it? Lyra asked. Another distress signal, he said quietly. A species we've never encountered before. They're being raided by Verith forces. They're calling for help. He looked up at Lyra. We're the closest fleet. Lyra saw the determination in his eyes. You're going. We're going, Marcus corrected. He gestured to the observation deck where dozens of freed prisoners were volunteering to join the human efforts, working as translators, guides, intelligence sources. This isn't just humanity's fight anymore. This is everyone's fight. Lyra straightened, feeling something ignite in her chest. For 3 years she had been broken, hopeless, forgotten, but now she had purpose. Then I'm coming too, she said firmly. Marcus extended his hand. Welcome to the crew. As they shook hands, the UES Valiant and its escort fleet began turning, aligning for their next jump. Behind them, liberated prisoners watched from transport ships, whispering in a dozen languages about the humans who had descended like a storm, and across the galaxy, in slave camps and prisons and dark places where hope had long since died, a message began to spread. Help was coming. Humanity was coming, and no one would be left behind.